How can you remodel your bones at any age? Your appearance, and by extension, how your life goes, is going to be underpinned by how the bones on your face sit. And this is going to be quite a humorous truth, but a deeper level of that is a truth that most people don't want to hear. And why do I say this? Well, I'll give you a short life story. When I was younger, I remember experiencing how people treated me, not because of the way I was, not because of who I thought they thought of me as, but rather because of what they saw with their eyes. What they saw with their eyes was someone who they deemed in their mind as unattractive. And I had the realization that if I saw someone who I deemed as unattractive, psychologically, particular reactions would happen in my mind where I would immediately be even very slightly put off. Now, as we grow older, and especially once you reach the ages of 30, say 40, it becomes a lot less visible. It's more internal, but it still exists. This is how important the bones are on the face. And when I put it like that, obviously it's going to sound quite humorous, we're talking about bones. In reality, it's a lot deeper, and it comes down to recognizing how deep it truly is. So, remodeling bones, and in particular, remodeling bones to the fullest capacity that you can to maximize your appearance. How is this done? This is only possible by understanding the pathways which allow for bone remodeling. And in particular, this is through the two cycles that occur. The first one is going to be the positive cycle where bone material is going to be deposited. If we look at the skull here, we're going to see that calcium and a whole bunch of different proteins are going to be deposited on the bone. This is just a simplification so you can understand. It's going to be deposited around here, and then what happens in the other side is that this is going to be removed and put on a different place. So it's like a sticker. We can imagine that we're almost putting a sticker here and then ripping it off and putting it back on. When we put it on, there's a chance that some of it's going to stay here, but on the other hand, there's also a chance that when you rip it off, some of it's going to come off, isn't it? Likewise, if we just understand the intuition like that, we want to maximize the amount of bone material that's going to stick on places that we want. For example, the jaw, the chin, the cheekbones, and the maxilla. How are we going to do that? Well, first, we need to understand what is the actual bone material. I gave you a slight indication as to what it was. I told you that calcium and proteins are going to be similar to what's going to be on the sticker. In particular, it's going to be a whole bunch of raw materials that are going to be synthesized by the body, used up, created into other things by the body, and then allow for bone to remodel. In particular, the collagen matrix. If we think about a tall building isn't just built brick by brick and then it goes all the way up, is it? There needs to be scaffolding. What's the scaffolding with bone? It's going to be the collagen matrix. And as the name suggests, it needs collagen. Which collagen? Type 1 collagen. Where do you find it? Fish skin is probably the best source, as well as eggs. Fish skin and eggs are going to be key. Don't supplement with this. I really wouldn't recommend it. Just eat it from that. That's going to be the first ingredient. Second, calcium. Calcium is key. Calcium you're going to find from Greek yogurt, from fermented cheese, which I'll get into in a second, as well as milk. Now, I'm going to recommend that you consume Greek yogurt and fermented cheese. Fermented cheese is going to contain, and particular types of fermented cheese. Remember the name, Gouda cheese. Gouda cheese has a particular type of MK9 vitamin K2. You may have already heard of MK4 vitamin K2. This is going to be like a shorter chain. You may have heard of MK7 vitamin K2. That's a slightly longer. I'm telling you about one of the longest chains, MK9. MK9 is going to be known for its very high bone affinity. It's going to be so beneficial at allowing the calcium that you're consuming to be redirected into the bones, hence the name bone affinity. It has an affinity for bone. Remember that calcium can just sit in the arteries. It can just sit here, and over time, it can cause significant damage. Rather than just sitting here, we want it to go to where it's needed, the bone. Fermented cheese, Gouda cheese, key. Next, how can we ensure that the bone actually remodels? We have the ingredients, but where are the workers for the building? That's going to be the two muscles in particular. The masseter muscles, the tongue. I always talk about this. I always talk about the importance of active tongue pressurization and aero. There's a reason for it, because it single-handedly is going to base the first steps of transforming your bones. You want to remodel your looks. You want to remodel your bones. Well, it needs to be possible one way or another. I just gave you the ingredients. Now here's the action. The information is everywhere on the internet. Since the advent of the creation of the internet, information is rampant. Application is what most people are lacking. Henceforth, what is the application? The tongue, the masseter muscles. The masseter muscles are going to be the jaw muscles. The tongue is going to be the tongue. You must ensure that for at a minimum by the end of this month, you can pressurize your tongue upwards for 2 hours. When you pressurize the tongue upwards, and in particular, where are we pressurizing? I'm going to show you. You need to do this for 2 hours. You're also going to be using the jaw muscles. It's going to support the tongue. The first point is here. That's where you need to pressurize with using the tongue, not the tip of the tongue, but rather around 10% behind the tip of the tongue, upwards and forwards at a 30-degree angle, and then simultaneously you need to be pressurizing this boundary point. The boundary point allows for force to then redistribute up, and it's going to signal to everything around here that it needs to remodel. That's how you are going to make use of all of these nutrients. If you're not able to make use of all of these nutrients, then there's no point of consuming them. The only way to make use of them is by having force generate through the 2 masseter muscles in the tongue. Now, how are we going to do this for 2+ hours a day? Well, you need to ensure that you're consuming, once again, the ingredients, but this time to allow the muscle to be able to pressurize for that long. And what is it going to be? It's going to be what acts as a vasodilator, something called nitric oxide. Now, how are we going to improve the levels of nitric oxide naturally in the blood? You're going to consume foods with L-arginine. Alternatively, you can supplement with L-arginine. This is an amino acid that elevates the level of nasal nitric oxide, which sits in the paranasal sinus inside of here. When you breathe in through the nose, it is going to siphon the air that you're breathing in due to something called the Bernoulli principle, wherein a reduction in the surface area that a fluid is going to pass through causes an increase in the velocity. That increase in velocity is going to siphon some of the nitric oxide in, go to the lungs, signals to the blood, we need to dilate. What does it do then? Well, it's going to allow the tongue to be able to generate more force, since we can just think of this intuitively from your time in school. If you remember, what is the mitochondria, powerhouse of the cell? In short, it's going to allow for energy release. Okay, energy release. We need more energy so the tongue can actually pressurize upwards. Well, more blood going in allows more nutrients for energy release. Vasodilator is nitric oxide. Nitric oxide found by consuming L-arginine. This is the shortcutted way to allowing bones to remodel, to reaching where you want to be. And if you want to learn more, then I'd advise you watch more on my advanced channel. My advanced channel goes more in depth on all of these topics, and you can see for yourself how that's going to change you. I'll see you in the next video.